Hello, everyone. Today, I want to discuss how backup can improve the security of your servers, or more generically, just what exactly we are doing with backups and Immunify 360. Kirill Bykov, our product manager for Immunify 360 and the person behind the launch of Immunify 360 CloudLinux Backup, will be doing the presentation. Kirill, please.
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you guys. Igor, thanks for introduction. As Igor mentioned, so we're going to talk about how to boost web server security with the backups, and particularly with our security product, Immunify 360. So let's start rolling. So Immunify 360 provides customers with an ability to integrate with backup providers and automatically or manually restore files from their backups if they have become infected. Only administrator can choose backup provider, but end user has an ability to backup and restore files within this selected backup provider. So at the moment, we have quite a few options available. So our branded CloudLinux Backup, cPanel and Test Backup, Acronis Backup, and R1Soft Backup is coming soon as well. So the requirements are quite obvious. You need to have Immunify 360 license purchased with version 2.7.0 and later ones. Let's talk about our solution and our CloudLinux Backup. So the CloudLinux Backup itself, it provides a customer with the most integrated with Immunify 360 backup feature. It's powered by the Acronis technology, but you do not need to have an active Acronis account. However, if you have one and you would like to continue using it, you can also do that by choosing Acronis Backup instead of CloudLinux Backup. Our option, CloudLinux Backup, offers 10 gigabytes of free storage space, and you can purchase additional space as needed. With this backup and restore service, you can restore malicious and suspicious files from the backup if a clean version exists, schedule backups, see total, and use storage space, and locate the data storage server. So in the next few slides, we're going to talk about several things and how to enable backups and disable it. For example, how to manage CloudLinux Backup, how to resize the backup storage, and how to schedule the automatic CloudLinux Backup. So how to enable backups. So we need to log in into the hosting panel as administrator, go to Immunify 360 plugin and do following things. So we need to go to 360 settings backup. If the feature is not currently used, the backup and restore is going to be disabled. So the button is going to be red. To enable, we need to select backup provider from the following drop-down list. In our case, it's going to be CloudLinux Backup. So how to activate it? We need to select CloudLinux Backup as an option from the previous slide, and we need to press on Connect Backup button. So afterwards, you will be redirected to the CloudLinux network page, which opens in a new tab, where we will need to log in with existing cloud networks, basically CLN credentials, and create. Otherwise, we need to create a new account. On the purchase page, you can choose and purchase required size of the storage as well. So after successful payment, the installation will be in process, and you will see a welcome page with the follow-up instructions. You need to know that installation can take up to 10 minutes depending on the specific server size. You can use Immunify 360 as usual during the installation process. Also afterwards, we will send an email with the detailed information to the specified email address. You will be able to see the purchase storage space on the settings backups tab as well. Afterwards, Immunify 360 creates an initial backup of a current server. If everything went well and okay, the system returns successful message otherwise. You can see used and total storage space on the settings and backups tab as well. So if you want to continue with Acronis Backup instead of CloudLinux Backup, you will need to select Acronis Backup from the drop-down instead of the CloudLinux, just over here. Enter Acronis username and password, and press Connect Backup button again. Immunify 360 will check if Acronis agent is already installed. If not, Immunify 360 installs it automatically. Then Immunify 360 will check if a backup of entire server exists. If not, Immunify 360 will create a backup of a current server. If all is okay, the system returns a successful message. So cPanel Flask backup, pretty much the same process. You will choose either cPanel or Flask backup accordingly and press the connect button. So how to disable backups if if you want to do that? We go to Immunify 360, then we go to settings and backups. We move the slider to disabled, the one which we saw on the very first slide, and the Immunify will return a confirmation window. So we press yes, disable backup, and cancel to close the window. So how to manage a CloudLinux backup if after we connected it, right? So we have the following actions to do. So we can disable the feature, we can manage the backup, we can change the CloudLinux backup storage size, and we can schedule a backup. So if we press on the manage backups, right, you will be redirected to the backup management console, and the console will open in a new tab in the browser. Resize. So if we click on the resize link, you will be redirected to the CLN, the Cloud Linux Network, and you will be able to purchase additional space if needed. So after the successful payment, the backup storage size will be increased. Immunify 360 creates an initial backup of a current server if it was not done before, or it will just easily increase the storage size. On the settings and backups tab, you will be able to see the actual size and use the amount of backup storage in gigabytes. So just again over here. Right. So schedule the Cloud Linux backup. Right. So we also have a button to in our manage backups, right, to schedule the backup and how to restore a file, right? So to restore a file, we need to do the following. We need to go to Immunify 360. We need to go to the malware scanner and find the file to restore it in the table. And click on cog icon, then click try to restore clean version. The pop-up confirm the action, click yes, restore from backup, and we will be able to configure automatic restore. That's basically the main point of using a backup option as a as boosting a protection, right? So the whole point of us developing a Cloud Linux backup is if your files get infected, they can be on the fly restored from a previously backup clean version of this file. So how does the Cloud Linux backup actually work? So when it's the first time enabled, right, it will create an initial backup. It can restore the whole server. So whenever you have a fault with the server, anything, it can restore the whole machine, and it can restore, as I mentioned, the files automatically. So the automatic restore, right? So there are two ways to enable it: in the Immunify 360 user interface and in the configuration file. So in the Immunify 360 user interface, we will need to go to settings, to malware tab, and try to restore files from the backup first. And to enable it from the configuration file appropriately, we need to use the following command. So try restore from backup first, false, value in the malware scanning section. So in case of a manual restore, please go to Immunify 360 malware scanner dashboard and malicious files table. We need to click the cog icon in a particular file row and click try to restore clean version from this backup. Which files on the server does Immunify 360 backup? So for CloudLinux Backup and Acronis, it creates a backup of entire machine if it was not created yet during the first initial backup process, right? The further process will make incremental snapshots of changes. So this is quite important. So on the very first launch, CloudLinux Backup will try to back up the whole files on your machine. And that's going to be the starting point, right? So afterwards, it will only going to be making snapshots of changes on your machine, right? So like in a week, the file gets infected and it's going to be restored from the last known clean version of that file. Here we go. That was pretty much of it. That was the whole description and the process of enabling and using our newest feature available for Immunify 360 customers, right? We've spent quite a lot of time creating it, and we really do think that it's a really great boost for your web server protection. Now we have time for some questions may arise.
We had the first question: how this backup, I presume CloudLinux Backup, is different than the WHM cPanel backup option? Okay, so there is quite a number of differences. So first of all, it's a block level backup, not a file level backup, which basically means it performs significantly better, it's faster, it creates less load, especially I/O load on the server, and it takes less space for the incremental backup. So if the file changed and it's an incremental backup, typically you will have a new file. With a block level backup, you will only have part of the file changed. So this is one of the critical differences. Of course, it also has support for MySQL Server. So today, to get a consistent MySQL backup with cPanel, what cPanel does is basically exports the database completely, so that you can actually have kind of a backup. It's a problem, it takes a long time, it's expensive, etc. Otherwise, you always have a chance that the backup the files for the database are in inconsistent state, and you need to fix them before the database can actually be restored. Another benefit of CloudLinux Backup versus cPanel Backup is that it's a full system backup, so you can actually do a bare metal restore, meaning you don't have to restore cPanel and then restore individual accounts. You just pop in a small disk or boot it from a flash drive, anything like that, and it will install everything, including OS, configuration files, cPanel, settings, customer, everything will be restored. Well, and of course, the third change is that it's a cloud backup. We do have on-prem solution, but today we mostly offer cloud backup, and it means that your data is not in the same data center. You can restore it in a different data center. It's available to you even when your data center and server is down. And we hold 3 replicas of the data so that you can be extremely confident that your backups are good, that they will not disappear, and nothing will happen with them. Next question. Hi, CloudLinux. How do you guys approach the GDPR when you are storing backups at CloudLinux Backup? Basically, with this cloud backup, we actually provide you with option of which data center you want data to go to. And of course, if you are GDPR, you should select European data centers. That already reduces the issues. But otherwise, it's the same thing as with any other subcontractor for data. And it's part of the EULA for the backup, that we will provide the services, that we don't look at your data and stuff like that, that feed the GDPR provisions. Is JetBackup solution taken in consideration as an option? Yes, we are actually talking to JetBackup and Bakula at this stage. We provided them everything needed to get them integrated in. I know Bakula Backup already started integration. We spoke with JetBackup about 3-4 months ago. So hopefully they'll get on board quite soon as well. But our desire is to support as many different backups as possible. One of the reasons we brought in CloudLinux Backup is because we realized that not a lot of people are actually running decent backup solutions, but we do want to support each and every backup solution there is on the market.
Yeah, to add over here, the Bakula backup, as Igor already mentioned, we partnered with them already. So this backup solution will become available during the summer this year. So the next 3-4 months.
Does CloudLinux Backup allow to automate rotating full backups to avoid fragmentation? So when it is in the cloud, for you, it actually doesn't matter if it's an incremental backup or a full backup, because when you're accessing full backup image, no matter what, that is based on the latest version. So it is done similarly to how copy on write snapshots are done. So no matter what, you always have the same blocks available to you, even if it's just an incremental backup. So we have to purchase CloudLinux Backup plan for each server, or can we bundle into one large plan? Do you have a discount rate for large plans? So we do sell it per server. We don't sell it together. But of course, if we're talking about 5-10 terabytes of data, we can come up with something different where we can sell you space together instead of individually on per server basis. Could reseller customers have access to manage their backup? What about if hosting company wants to resell extra space? So basically, if you're using cPanel or Plesk, there is a user interface for each individual customer, reseller, or just a customer to access their files and see their files and restore the backup. I don't think there is a DirectAdmin plugin yet, but there is a plugin for cPanel and Plesk. Regarding hosting companies reselling the space to resellers, no, we don't have this interface. So we foresee this hosting company reselling the space to dedicated server owners or VPS owners, but not to resellers on a cPanel server, because in most of the cases we see you backing up the whole server, not parts of the server. Does it support bare metal restore? Yes, it does. Is it only one backup job, or can you have multiple backup jobs with different schedules?
It is only one backup job, but you can schedule it to run whatever you need, so like hourly, daily, etc. Yeah, that's what I was talking about, automatic backup and restore. So yes, you can schedule it on hourly basis, on a daily basis.
Kirill, but can you do it so that it runs once every day and then another time on Sunday?
No, so you can either do it it runs once every day, or it's going to be running every Sunday. So it's one of those. Yeah.
So with the delay with R1Soft, we actually have everything that is needed for R1Soft, and they're not that slow responding. We have a good relationship with them. I personally went to visit them in January of this year. But the problem is that they have two products. One is R1Soft, the other one is Continuum Backup that uses the same engine, the same API. And Continuum Backup, which is used for mostly for office backups, it's always encrypted. So when R1Soft implemented their APIs, they implemented it so that you have to have the decryption key as part of the equation to restore the files. And there is absolutely no way to use this API to restore a file without the decryption key. And the thing is that pretty much everyone we spoke to who is using R1Soft is not using any encryption for those backups. So they don't have decryption keys or encryption keys. So we did all the integration with their APIs. The problem is that there is no decryption keys, and their API doesn't work without decryption keys. They promised us that they will change their APIs in Q2 or early, I believe Q2. And they will add the API that has support for R1Soft, where there is no encryption key, but we're basically blocked by that. And until it's done, we can't release it. Otherwise, we would release it basically tomorrow, because on our site, all the integration is done. We just need to be able to do it without the encryption. Can those backups be configured for certain individual websites and not others on the same server? No. So Acronis backup, % CloudLinux backup in general, it's possible to configure it like that. But the way we did our integration today is that everything has to be backed up. It's a server level backup. In the future, we're planning to add more configurability that you can select and backup only some backups and not all, and maybe upsell it as a service. But today, it's not an option. When will R1Soft be supported, and how does CloudLinux Backup compare to R1Soft? So when supported, most likely it's going to be Q2. As soon as R1Soft releases their updated API, it will be supported. How does CloudLinux Backup compare to R1Soft? So the idea is very similar. The main principle is a block level backup. Where it starts to differ is mostly cloud versus not cloud. R1Soft is mostly local, on-prem. CloudLinux Backup allows you to back up to the cloud. I know that not a lot of people want it, but I would say it's a primary difference as of today. Does Acronis agent work like R1Soft agent? They seem to be using the same strategy. First, it backs up the entire machine, and then only incremental changes on the block level. That's exactly how it works. Do you have an ETA for using your own backup servers with CloudLinux backups? So we are already starting to work with some customers on that. If you're interested, we can definitely discuss it and do it with you as well. Can this backup be configured on your own separate backup server? Once again, we don't sell it outright like that, but contact our sales, and yes, it can be done. So Acronis has this feature. We can also provide this feature based on their technology. It's not a problem. It's just that it's not integrated yet into our billing system. Are the snapshots and bare metal restore file level or block level backups? They're block level backups, but you can restore individual files as well. So it's smart enough to realize that, hey, this set of blocks represent a different set of a different file. More than that, the whole system is smart enough that if you need to restore it on a different hardware with a different size of hard disk, it will adjust the partitions, it will adjust the blocks, and it will actually reconfigure device drivers for the hardware to correctly restore on a different hardware. How fast can you restore a machine with CloudLinux Backup? Take example, 200 GB VPS machine with cPanel and WHM installed. So we were restoring a machine using 10 gigabit uplink. 1 gigabit uplink. And it was restoring it at full force. So you can basically take your pipe to this machine and calculate how long it will take to transfer this data. The data centers where the data will be resided are on all the continents, well, excluding Antarctica. And it's multiple data centers, so you can pick the data center close to you, and you should be able to fully saturate your network pipe on restore. Immunify 360. What is the difference between Immunify 360 malware scanner and config server CXX malware scanner? Well, they're using very different technologies. I mean, that's the main difference. They're using very different technologies. So we're using proprietary technology as the main engine. We're supplementing this engine with ClamAV, but that's really for really old malware for which we don't have the signatures. So the malware that is 3-5 years ago, or malware for binary files. We mostly look for malware in PHP, HTML, JavaScript. We also have entropy detection that is not a signature-based detection of malware, but otherwise it's a very different principles on which it's searching. It uses cascading regular expressions instead of basic signatures to detect, which allows it to detect exact type of malware with high precision while allowing for polymorphic malware as well. And one of the reasons we're doing that, and that's something that will come in the future, is that we want you to be able to offer malware cleanup. And to do it really well, we need automated malware cleanup in most cases. So first stage was automated malware cleanup through backup. Next stage will be automated malware cleanup through algorithmic malware cleanup, which will be supplemented by human malware cleanup.
If your server size is 200 gigabytes and you start backup, how much space do I need to buy? Will your backup with 7 days retention, or how does that work? Yes, so we do backup with 7 days retention. In terms of the space, we recommend to purchase, so basically the amount of required space is determined by the size of the server, obviously, and how often the content changes. So if the content of your server changes on a daily basis, we recommend to get the actual disk size multiplied by 2.4 gigabytes of disk space to be used for backups. In all other cases, we recommend to get the actual disk size multiplied by 1.4 gigabytes of disk space. So these coefficients include all incremental backups for the 6-month scheduled backups in future.
Just in case, you need to base it on the actual data size, not on the disk size. So your disk size is kind of irrelevant. If you have a terabyte disk, but you're only using 100 gigabytes, you can get 140 gigabytes. It will be enough for 6 months. And remember, because it's cloud, it's not like you're buying a hard disk. You can always add more. So you can start actually with 80, then in a month add another 10, another 10, another 10, until you get to 140. And not buy 140 all the time, because you will not use 140 at first. It's deduplicating, it is a compressing backup, so a lot of data will be compressed out, and that's why we can have so many iterations without much overhead. Next question. I know that this is a solution to address modified files, but what about malware files that are not modified but are new files? What is done to eliminate those? Well, as I was saying, we are going to do malware cleanup. But if you think about it, if we detected the file that is malicious and a new file, it can just be deleted. And that's what we do when we put it into quarantine. So the real issue is typically modified files, because if it's a complete, like the whole file is malicious, it's deleted when it's pushed into quarantine anyway. And you can just purge it from the quarantine. What is automatic restoration based on? A malware hit or a changed file? So when we detect malware, the software will actually be able to decide if the whole file malware, if just a piece of the file malware, and it will figure out which part of it is malicious and which part of it is not. And that's why this antivirus malware scanning algorithm is cascading regular expressions, so that it can fairly certainly decipher where the malware starts, where it ends, and extract just the malware. Of course, it will not be able to do it for everything, only for the types of malware that it recognizes, but it's fairly significant number of malware that it can extract. When are you going to restore bare metal? Would I have to install an agent on a server and then connect it to the backup server? Yes, that's basically how it works. You boot up from the flash disk or from network boot, give the parameters like login password, and after that it will select the server, and after that it will do the restore. For R1Soft, they provide a cPanel plugin that has a file restoration capability. Can't you do what they do to address the encryption key file? We couldn't. So we tried, but we couldn't. We based it on the APIs that they were willing to open to us. We did the work, and we got stuck.
Yeah, we couldn't bypass the encryption, so that's why we're waiting response.
I think they might have two APIs. They might be doing something undocumented API. By the way, the other APIs they gave us was also undocumented, but basically it's an issue which is unpleasant, but we're trying to solve it, and we're talking to them. It sounds like R1Soft hosting market for them is secondary to their Continuum product. Does JetBackup Manager will be supported by you directly or by JetApps as third-party plugin? Well, we need them to come up with the integration, and after that we will onboard them and support them completely. So it's a mixture how we work with vendors. We picked the three most populars, which were cPanel, Plesk, and R1Soft, and implemented the integration for them, and then we asked everyone else if they want to be integrated to come up with the integration or APIs that is easy enough to integrate, and JetApps is one of those. Does backup feature will be available with DirectAdmin control panel? Yes, so DirectAdmin control panel should be released really soon, within what, 2 weeks? 1 week?
The DirectAdmin is aimed to be released on 12th of March, so in about 6 to 8 days, I would say. That's what we're aiming for.
And it should have backup integration as well.
Yeah, it will. Yeah.
R1Soft gets slower after every backup and requires manual full backup rotation. But you say R1Soft and CloudLinux Backup work the same way. I presume that the difference or there is the same problem. Well, they do work the same way from the idea that they use blocks instead of files. It's a block level backup, but the actual way how it stores it on a server sounds like it's completely different. I actually didn't know that R1Soft slows down. There is no reason for them to slow down. If you think about it, it's similar to how LVM snapshots works, and you can always remove old snapshots and use just new snapshots. As you know, Acronis, they have a sister company, Virtuoso, with their ploops, pstore, where the snapshotting was done really well. And from what I know, part of the technology to implement snapshots on the server so that you will have latest version of your data as a snapshot at any moment at high speed is based on the same ploop technology that doesn't have this reduction of speed as you get more snapshots. ZFS also doesn't have reduction of speed on more snapshots. So I'm not sure why R1Soft has this issue. It's not something uncurable based on the technology. So do you think the i360 malware scanner is better, picking up almost all types of malware? So we recently went and tested our malware scanner against CXS. We didn't even test it against ClamIV because it's relevant. We didn't test it against Maldat. We just so much better than those, but we did test it against CXS, Avast, and few other malware scanners. And what we found is that we are slower. We're about twice as slow, but we do catch more PHP and JavaScript and HTML level vulnerabilities. we don't catch binary vulnerabilities. For that, we rely on entropy analysis and on CLAM IV, but they're extremely rare per se on hosting machines. Like, you typically don't see Windows malware sitting on shared hosting server, and if you do, it's easily picked up by entropy analyzer. So yes, you should expect better rates and lower false positive rates from our malware scanner. And what we've seen at some point is that a lot of people started to complain when we disabled speculative analyzers that just told you that the file is suspicious. So we're no longer telling you that the file is suspicious. We just tell you if it's a malware or not. And CXX will tell you that the file is suspicious the same way as they're telling it's malicious, which generates a lot of false positives, non-malicious files.
Yeah, that's really good point, Igor. Can I add one more thing here
Yes.
as well? We're doing a lot of work on our performance as well. And just today we did some tests on a new build which is going to be coming out. So our performance in terms of speed should raise in about 7 to 8 times. So we're constantly working on our scanners.
Well,
and yes,
so 7 to 8 times it's for bigger files. So one of the problems with our scanner is that the larger your files, especially files bigger than 120, 150 kilobytes, which you rarely see in a hosting system, are slower to scan. As a result, it slows down the whole scan, but we are improving that detection as well. Can you adjust the retention numbers for the backup, Kirill? I believe it's possible.
It is possible, yeah. It is possible.
So you have access to the management interface where you can basically set up how many copies, for how long to keep them, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Could you eventually address the whole process of fixing the exploit? Restore, change password, determine exploit, patch exploit, or disable the plugin or theme in WordPress, for instance. I'm not sure it is algorithmically possible. I think it will be possible for some exploits, but not for all. And another thing is there is a lot of procedural stuff that needs to be done. So for example, okay, we can do it for WordPress, but can we do it for anything else? I'm not ready to answer this question. It's a holy grail, but to be honest, our number one concern is prevention. We truly believe in prevention. We really believe that even if your software has the same vulnerability, hackers shouldn't be able to exploit this vulnerability twice on your server, and that's, or on any server. So if someone exploited something on one server protected by Immunify 360, what we're trying to deliver is that no other servers will be exploited using the same vulnerabilities in the future, and that's what we're going after. And if once we do that, updating or disabling the plugin will no longer matter as much. Would it be possible to downgrade space as well? Yes, it is possible. Do you have mod security integration with Immunify 360? And if yes, do you have your own mod security rule sets? So yes, we do have mod security integration. Yes, we do have our own rule set. We also use some of the Comodo rule set. We're relying less and less on the Comodo rule set, but we are using it a little bit differently than most people. So because once any rule is triggered, we get the event on our central correlation server where we correlate it with the IP and other information that we get from a lot of other different servers. And we have a heuristic and machine learning system that can estimate based on the signature of events that we're seeing from this particular IP if it's an attack or not. And as a result, we're able to block a lot of attackers before they come to your server. block them early when they come to your server, even if they're not triggering particular rules that should be triggered. Plus, we know the rules that generating a lot of false positives. We still rely on them for this correlation. We just don't block people from accessing your website simply because they hit that particular rule. And that helps us a lot to improve protection levels. Do you have plans to replace direct ComodoWAF vendor with your own rule set instead? Yes, and even today we're using less and less of Comodo rule set. So Immunify 360 scans every newly added infected file and removes it. Yes. Sorry,
yes, and we restore it from the backup. Yeah, the last version, and then remove.
We can restore it. So if it's a completely new file, it comes in. For example, uploaded through PHP, we will scan it, and if it's malicious, we will not even let it be written on the disk. Or if it's uploaded through FTP, it will be placed on the disk, and then a minute later it will be removed because we detect that it was a malware. But if some file was modified, we will scan it. We will see that it was modified with a malware, and we will offer you the latest clean version of this file that you have in your backups. It would be possible to choose location of cloud backup, e.g. in Europe, to buy correct with GDPR policy. Yes, you can detect, you can select where you want to have your backup stored. There is multiple data centers. We have multiple data centers in Europe. So you should, in most cases, you should be able to find data center that is close by and fits the needs that you have. If we use Immunify 360, is it required to use mod security with mod sec rules? Well, you need to use mod security with our rule set. Otherwise, I mean, you will still gain a lot of benefits. You will gain the benefit of the IP-based firewall, meaning that if the IP is attacking a lot of servers across the network, it will be blocked automatically on your machine. And that's how we stop about, I would say, 9 out of 10 attacks. But attacks against your particular server will not be stopped. And that's kind of a problem. But all other benefits will be there.
Please repeat the required version level for Immunify 360. Yeah, that's version 2.7.0.
That's the latest version. For what? For backup?
For backup. For backup. Yeah, that's the latest version for backup needed to use backup. Yeah.
Can we close server ports using Immunify 360 firewall? Yeah. So today you already can block individual ports. Soon you will have a mode where by default all ports are closed, well, except 80, 443, etc. And you go from the idea that everything is closed until you open it.
That would be available. Guys already working. It's probably about 3 weeks away.
If you have your own custom rules, where we can download it? Well, we don't provide it separately. We provide them only as part of Immunify 360, and Immunify 360 agent is managing the set of rules that will be installed on your server. More than that, we actually don't install all the rules on all the servers. So as I was telling, we have a lot of generic rules, and we spread them out across the servers so that each server doesn't have to test as many rules against each request. And at the other time, we see that particular rule is more effective or detecting, hitting a lot of things that we wanted to see, and sends us back the feedback based on which we can block more and more botnets. So there is that as well. But yeah, it's based on the agent. It's not based on just some download URL. Can we white label certain IPs to access closed ports? Yes, you can. So for each port, you can define either which IPs are blocked on that port, and then it's open for everyone else, or which IPs are whitelisted for that port, and then everyone else is closed. If we have Immunify 360, we should not install OWASP mod security rules. Yes, we cannot, you should not, and more than that, you don't need to. They are very high on false positives. I would not recommend using them either way. I360 firewall is better than CSF firewall. If we have I360, is it better to not have other firewalls installed, such as CSF? Today, I would say that you no longer need CSF. You're better off just running Immunify 360. There is some other stuff that CSF does that people like ability to kill processes and stuff like that. And we still don't have that. But otherwise, I believe we do everything that CSF does, just better. So what about Cloudflare server shots? It's a problem for us today because we're basically whitelisting their IPs, and we see huge amount of attacks coming through their IPs. This should be closed. This loophole should be closed within the next, I don't know, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, where we will proxy all their traffic through our web shield, our proxy gateway, that will still that will be able to block on the true IP and not Cloudflare IP. So we're working on that, and we're doing the same for Max CDN. Overall, we see CDN like Cloudflare and Max CDN as enabler for a lot of attackers to hide their IPs against firewalls, and we want to close that down. How much processing power does Immunify 360 uses on malware scanning for custom scan? We limit it to 1 core. So it will not use more than 1 core, but it does use more than CSF Firewall to scan files. What about email? When will Immunify 360 address email spam and attacks on things like EXIM and SMTP? We actually already prevent attacks on EXIM and SMTP. We detect brute force attacks. That's pretty much the only attacks we see. We don't do spam yet. We are planning to do spam, but it's not on our to-do list right now. To be honest, right now, what we want to do is prevent malware. That's basically, we want to prevent your servers from being infected, because part of the idea is that if we can prevent them from being infected, brute forced, etc., you will see less spam as well. Like if we have 300 to 400 sites, it still will be 1 core. It will run for longer. I presume this is like if we have 300 to 400 sites, it's how long will scan take or stuff like that. It's really hard to say. It depends on large number of things. It will take it will be twice as slow as CSF scan, but otherwise I really can't give you a number.
It really depends also on the amount of files, like on the server. So if it's a huge server, 15 million
amounts of files, types of files, size of files. So your firewall can be used with Cloudflare WAF using Cloudflare server shell. Yes, it can be. Any news on sandboxing? It's still work in the progress. It's not ready to be operational. We'll actually release web shell first. Basically, it's still not ready, but I hope it to be ready by end of April or May. It's all the components are done, but the glue that keeps it together and actually detects things and sends it back to us is yet to be implemented. When will you release the option to stop mass mailing like email spam? Most of WordPress sites, when get compromised, sends huge mail spams. That's what I was talking about. We plan to work on preventing spam, but it's not our goal. Today, our goal is to prevent WordPress sites from being compromised. That's where we spend most of our time. And until we know we're 99% there, we will not start working on spam. And I think it will be at least 6 months before we're there. Are there plans to build a centralized management GUI to manage all servers like Bitninja? Yes, we plan to do it. We don't like the idea too much. because it's very easy to compromise it and bring down everything. So given that we have much better, we're much bigger target for hackers overall already, we know that we need to do everything very carefully. We cannot do stuff in PHP. We cannot do stuff not as good. We're making sure that everything is encrypted, and even if hackers get access to our central server, they still cannot do anything to your servers individually. At the same time, we want to be able to make it so that you can do stuff. And that's kind of competing scenarios that are hard to do, and we're working hard to make sure it's possible. We're actually working on the same project for CloudLinux. So we're working on Elastic Console. Once we solve it, we will provide the interface so you can monitor what's going on with your servers all together and adjust the settings on a global level.
Yeah, true. Approximately in Immunify 360 development plans, we have it in Q4.
Next question, how about blocking port access by country? I don't believe we have it. I don't believe we will have it, and I'll tell you why. So we have all these patterns on how attacks are spread out. What we are seeing, and we're pretty confident in that because we're seeing 20 million events every day, is that you're not being attacked by any particular country. It's absolutely not true. There is very little correlation that you are seeing more attacks from particular countries than from other countries. Doesn't mean that you will see little attacks, for example, from India, because these days we actually see a lot of attacks coming from India. China is of course also there, and US is there. But if you take individual server and you see all the attacks coming to that particular server, what we see is that just blocking on a level of a country doesn't give you anything particularly good comparing to what we're doing already on an IP level. So it would be kind of meaningless block that we don't see the point of implementing. Thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you everyone for your attention. It was lovely to see you all.